Today's topic is social media addiction. I covered general addiction a few videos ago, and I thought that because people are spending more time at home right now, that it might be more challenging to self-regulate without a normal schedule. So social media would be relevant. The first topic to consider is consumption versus production. So when we wake up in the morning and we get right into consumption, it can be hard to adjust and realign with production. Esther Hicks uses an example I like of behavior change where she talks about a train moving in one direction really fast, and then it can't just go in the opposite direction. It has to slow down, it has to stop, and then move in the opposite direction. So that's kind of how consumption and production work is. If we get into consumption and we get pulled into the momentum, it can be hard to stop and go into production like really, really quickly. We usually need to slow down and take a bit of time to readjust. The way that I also like to think about it is, for me, if I have a really light, simple breakfast, sometimes I can work for hours and it's like 4 or 5 o'clock and I don't even realize that it's that late. And then if I have a big breakfast, like a big brunch, then I might feel kind of lazy and I might feel, more like wanting to lounge around, and then end up wanting to have a big dinner and feeling kind of like blah again. So that's another way I like to think about it, is that, if we enter consumption first thing in the morning, then we just kind of want to be in that space for the rest of the day. So the next area to think about is our morning setup, because if we don't have go-to things in the morning that are a little bit productive, it can be hard to go back to that later. So if we pick up our phone and we start scrolling through things and start watching videos, then we don't have as much control over our time or our energy or our behavior first thing, and then that will affect how we feel in later parts of the day. So it's important to have a mindful morning setup. Some people shower, some people have a healthy breakfast, some people exercise. Whatever works for you is what's best to do, but it's important that we stick to it, like that when we wake up in the morning, we say, okay, I'm going to write for 10 minutes. I'm going to go for a jog, and actually do it without reaching for a phone or a tablet or something. So when we kind of get into that, obviously we're going to make mistakes, and there's going to be some days where we feel focused and other days where we don't, and that's okay. That's part of the process. So the next thing to do is schedule social media time. So instead of kind of letting it be whenever we feel like, making sure that we decide, okay, every day from 9 till 10, we will check emails, go on social media, and then especially for people who work with social media and they need a second time during the day, then they can say, okay, every day from 5 to 6. And that way, in the morning, it's kind of good to check things, check messages, check emails, especially if there's stuff that's work-related. And then 5 to 6 is good for posting the pictures that we might have taken during the day or the video that we might have made during the day. So we don't have to get into that habit of taking a picture and then posting right away, making a video, posting it right away, because then we lose control of our time. So the next topic is having a greater purpose connected to our use. This can help us regulate our behavior by simply connecting to, okay, why are we using this? Why do we want to use it? What do we do with it? And what is our bigger purpose? Like, not just for seeing, what other people are doing, or not just for wanting to, be trendy, but what is actually the bigger purpose? So I see that on Facebook, a lot of the people I went to high school with are now married, they have kids, and they're posting stuff so that family in other countries can see what they're up to. They can see that their children are growing. They post like anniversaries and things like that. So that's like, a meaningful kind of way to use that particular platform. And then for people who have businesses, they might grow their businesses on Instagram or on YouTube. For people who want to teach, for people who want to share, ways that they feel will be helpful. There's a lot of people doing that on these platforms, and everyone's gonna have a different reason, but it's important to connect to the reason, because it can help us make sure that we're a little bit more focused during the day when we are navigating through whatever we're doing. So the quote that I like to think of is something I heard Oprah Winfrey say, which is, if we don't use media, media will use us. I don't know if I'm quoting her exactly, but that concept always stuck in my head, because these companies, they've read all the brain science books, all the books on the nervous system. So when they're building these companies and they're building these platforms, they know human behavior. They've read about psychology, and they know what's going to make someone feel good. They know what's going to make someone stay on that platform or want to be on it for longer. And so it's important to just remember that if it's hard to wean off the addiction, it's a bunch of science that, it would be hard for one single person to consume all of the science that goes into building these things. So it's not something to feel really, really bad about, oh, why am I like this? And it's like a machine, right? So it's not something to feel like it's our fault. It's not anyone's fault. It's those platforms are designed to function that way and to make people feel addiction. So it's okay to feel overwhelmed or a little bit not in control all the time. And as long as we come back to remembering, okay, why do we use this media? What are we using it for? And making sure that we connect to that regularly. And the other thing is to remember that the addiction is still physical, because I feel with social media, it can feel intellectual, or it can feel like it's our mind getting stuck on something, obsessing over something, or wanting to click on this, wanting to click on that. It can be a very mental experience, but we have to remember that it's still a hormonal release pattern that's happening. It's still a craving for more dopamine and whatever else happens in the brain. It's the same thing as when people want to drink regularly, or they want to shop regularly. It's not purely mental. It is a physical thing, and that means that there's a physical solution. The way that we can also view it, which I find helpful, is that prayer and purpose is more powerful than the desire for instant gratification. So instant gratification is a really normal thing. Everyone has that experience where they feel pulled to something that would feel good right now. Like if I think about a chocolate bar and then I eat a chocolate bar, that feels good. And if I think about, watching a video about a certain person and then I Google it and I click on it, like that's going to feed my curiosity in that moment. That's supposed to feel good. But instant gratification takes away from our long-term goals and desires. It takes away from our quality of life. It can affect our relationships. It can affect our health. So it's important that we remember that prayer and purpose is more powerful than that, because sometimes it can feel like when we've lost control, it can feel overwhelming or feel like we don't have power. But the purpose and prayer, meditation, these things connecting to like a higher plane, they do work, and they can override instant gratification with time. It might take some time to get there, but it is possible and very, very doable and realistic. If we can take a moment, so even if we do these things, it's gonna take some time. We can't just like remember the train and the brain. We can't just like, go in the opposite direction super, super quickly. So when we practice and then we do end up binging, just remember in the moment, like whenever we become conscious and we're like, oh, I don't want to feel like this, or I wanted to be done this task by 3 o'clock and now I've just like, been scrolling through Instagram. When we get that moment where we feel that and it doesn't feel good, remember to just breathe deeply, reconnect to the body, and then do something physical. Drink water, take a shower, go for a walk, stretch, jump up and down. Like just do something physical so that we ground ourselves, and that will help us choose our next moment, choose our next task, as opposed to getting sucked into the like kind of behavior of wanting to like click on something else and something else and something else. So yeah, those are the areas to think about, and it's just kind of a general overview on this topic. I just thought that these little things would be helpful. So if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below, and I'm sending you lots of blessings from Toronto.